I'd like to bring in our students now, and the reason that, and I'm calling as Linda, I'm referring to you as a student. I know that you're a recent graduate, and Caleb, I know that you've got a lot of experience, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted you to come and join us and talk to us. One of the key features of the Industry Forum, and something that's really driven by the Global Engineering Deans Council, is the desire to listen to students and to hear how the next generation would like to engage in their own learning, and what you'd like to see from deans and from industry partners. So thank you, Doris. Good to see you. So what I'd like to do is, first of all, I'm going to ask you both to introduce yourselves, and just to give the context, we had already one student discussion with some names that you will recognize: Felipe, the head of the student organization SPEED, a student entrepreneur and innovator who's actually at McMaster University at the moment, and also a recent graduate member of the IET, very, very big engineering professional association, who's working on a skills topic. Now, what we thought would be interesting would be to hear contrasting voices from different parts of the world, and that's why we continued in this way. We also had the input from a fairly new European research project. It's funded by the EU, and it's about skills, identifying what skills are needed for the future, and when and how do students most like to learn those skills. So we're going to bring that in as well. It's interesting to look at the research and see what the reaction to that will be. To start off with, can I ask you both, please, to introduce yourselves, tell us who you are, what you're studying or you studied, and where you are right now in terms of your education and career trajectory, just in a couple of brief comments. I wonder, as Linda, maybe we can start with you, if you're happy to kick off.
Hi, thank you, Kristen. So my name is Linda Azmi. I'm from Malaysia. If you have heard of Kuala Lumpur, this is where my capital is. Basically, I graduated my mechanical engineering from University Technology Petronas, and is also in Malaysia, and recently graduated my master's in engineering education from University Technology Malaysia. And I work closely with Center for Engineering Education, University Technology Malaysia, previously, and now I'm moving into industry, executive. We work in team in industry and manufacturing sector.
Okay. And so how long have you been in industry and out of education?
Before I did my master, it was like 1 or 2 years, and I went into education, did my master's in 3 years, and then I'm back into industry for, I think I started this job pretty at the right time, in January, and until now I'm in this manufacturing factory in Kuala Lumpur.
All right. Okay. And Caleb, tell us about yourself.
Hi. So I'm a final semester law student at Deakin Law School, and I'm also a student of the School of Engineering at RMIT University in Melbourne. I guess where my sort of possibly intersection with the panel comes in, I'm presently employed by Deakin University in Learning Futures, and one of the key sort of drivers for us is graduate employability, which is, I guess, a common buzzword. And what I seek to sort of do in all my engagements across both academia and professionally is take that sort of very holistic and long-term view to what impactful actions we can have, which are going to deliver the best long-term employment outcomes for our graduates. So that's sort of a space that I'm passionate in, and thanks for inviting me along this morning.
That's great. So employability skills, and that's a hot topic right now. In many ways, because of the impact of the pandemic and the possibility either that graduates will not have the right skills for the workplace as it is right now, or that in fact the roles are not going to be there. The job market is going to be slower, and therefore that's going to put more pressure on graduates to develop the right skills. Maybe just to kick off the questions that I've got, I could ask Dominic, who's here as well, and courageously staying up until the early hours to make sure that our session runs smoothly. I'm going to share with you the research project that we talked about. So we'll kick off looking at this, and then we'll come to the topic of COVID and the reaction to that. So this is the research. It's called A-STEP, which is very typical for a European research project, because there was always an acronym that goes with a European funded project. So this one's called A-STEP, and it's a partnership between a number of different universities, including TU Dublin and Finland's Metropolia University of Applied Sciences. And it's all about attracting diverse talent to engineering professions of 2030. So this project is something that will run in 3 parts. Thanks, Danny, noted, and I hope with that we see you tomorrow. That's great. It's a project that's run in 3 parts, and the first 2 parts of the research are done. So let's have a look at that. Great. Okay, so at the start of the research, the researchers went out and got questionnaires completed by the students in all of their universities. And there's a consortia of about 7 different universities across different European countries. So quite a lot of feedback, and also from the student organization BEST, which I know is linked to the SPEED network. And these are the skills and competencies that students felt were required to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. And obviously learning for impact in relation to the Sustainable Development Goals is something that has become much, much more important. And so I invite both Linda and Caleb to take a look at this. And obviously we're thinking about engineering education in particular right now. What's your reaction to this? Do you agree with what you see on the graphic? Linda, do you want to kick off?
Yeah. Yes, this is interesting. When I saw this outcome, when it was delivered to me, I think 2 or 3 days ago, it's very resonates to me to see words such as learning to learn, problem solving, of course, and responsibility, awareness, and it comes at the very right time, I think, because from my experience transferring myself in engineering education research for the past few years, and then now I'm in the industry again, it kind of rising up, I would say, characters that I'm looking for in engineering students, and in myself also. And for example, learning boundaries. This is interesting also. It is needed now, I would say. It needs for the change to happen. It needs for the transformation to happen. Subject, whole, common, challenges, openness. And I would like to see more of the risk taking, actually. And maybe it is overlap with all of these characters.
Okay, so you agree with this, and your reflection is actually more on how to make sure how to include these things within the engineering program?
Yeah.
Okay.
From my experience doing research in engineering education, I discovered a lot about students' awareness on their own, I would say, initiative to lead the classroom themselves. It is more to constructivist classroom nowadays, more to student-centered, things like that. And all of these are needed, I would say, critical thinking, project management, collaboration, teamwork. All of these are very interesting to be seen inside the classroom context nowadays, especially for the students to practice in the industry, because technical knowledge is important, but I would say the soft part of the human characters is also needed when we are working industry. I think you know that better than anyone, right?
I understand that. Caleb, tell me what's your view on this? How does this resonate? And in particular as well, just at a first glance, and you haven't had the chance to study this in detail, but you'll see as the participants saw early on today, simply the big picture straight away. I'm interested to hear how you find this resonates, and also if it's the same in your part of the world particularly. So what do you think of this?
No, certainly. So I can only presume that obviously the focus on these skills is apportioned to, I guess, the order of importance by their prominence and display. So the approach is
the number of times that they've been mentioned. It's about how many students wrote that skill when the survey was done.
Great. So I guess from the point of view of sort of molding that mindset of students, we've reached a point now where sort of the critical thinking, communication, technical skills, this is sort of ingrained into university programs, and this is assumed. Mm-hmm. So therefore, these aren't skills that are necessarily being recognised by employers and industry, because this is something that, as a minimum expectation, every graduate coming outside of a tertiary degree is going to have this. And it's exactly those soft skills, which, as Linda sort of mentioned, which are sort of the greater focus, because it's no longer, a matter of what you know, it's a matter of what sets you apart from, everyone else in your cohort, because as a cohort of capable graduates and, largely ones that have, focused on their own, future, you're going to be surrounded by many other students that have got, very high GPAs, and, we know that a high GPA is sort of not going to cut it anymore. So I think a greater focus on actually, seeing some of these, skill sets which represent the soft skills that students are still treating as secondary, as, sort of the primary considerations. I can give you, depending on whether you want to or not, there's a sort of mentorship program, which is sort of an industry funnel, I guess, with an airline in Australia, and they've set up a mentoring program within the School of Engineering, and that's basically sort of a 2-year sort of program that sort of happens, which starts to prepare students for entry interviews into the company basically. And what they've done is focused on 7 pillars that the company looks at. So as a minimum threshold, you've got to achieve a GPA of say 3.5. Okay. The company's got 7 values, which include teamwork and integrity and cultural intelligence, and these are the 7 sort of areas of focus that students over this 2-year period are asked to sort of explore, identify with, and take responsibility for. Because what the airlines sort of identified is that, look, this is the values that we've aligned ourselves with. These are representative of the industry now and where it's moving, in the next 10 years. And as a result of which, you need to have your GPA and you need to have these 7 soft skills nailed in order to be considered, because that's going to make you a viable candidate for, us as a long-term investment.
And are they the same skills, Caleb? Can I just say they're the same things that you see here, more or less? You see those 7 soft skills repeated somehow within this, or not?
Of course they are. So it's those sort of buzzwords we know, such as leadership and collaboration and cultural intelligence.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. Sorry, this online action. Aslinda, do you see these as buzzwords?
Sorry?
Was that's an interesting reflection that you gave, Caleb, you talking about these as buzzwords. Do you see them as buzzwords? And is that I don't know whether you mean that with a kind of pejorative twist or not, Caleb? Is it something that you is there a reason why you think that they're buzzwords, just because they're popular right now, or do you actually find them vague and not particularly? What's behind that use of kind of buzzwords?
Certainly. Myself or as Linda? As Linda, yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah, it's for Caleb.
Yeah. I'll leave Caleb to respond, and then as Linda, we'll hear from you as well. How you
I use the term buzzwords maybe more as a colloquialism as opposed to anything else, but it's possibly because of, even with this survey, how students recognize these as, sort of ideas in the background somewhere, but they're not at the heart of
integrated.
Exactly what graduate
Yeah.
employability is focused on. So when you ask, based on this survey, a student, what do you need to succeed in the future? And they'll tell you, oh, well, critical thinking and technical skills, obviously, because that's the heart of what we do at university. Yes, exactly. To get through a degree, as far as setting yourself up for, graduate employability outcomes, no. And that's where the mindset needs to shift, and that focus needs to be on everything else that gets you noticed, not the thing that's being taught in the present.
So, Aslind, you agree with that? How would you like to see these skills being taught? Then, is that what? How do you think they need to be in, so that students don't see them as buzzwords, but they understand that they're actually part of what they're learning when they're studying? How would you like to see that happen?
Yeah, I would like to see, like, it's not. I believe technical skills is very important in engineering education and for like problem solving itself. But how is the I would say the relationship of practicing these technical skills, this creative thinking, design thinking, and all stuff, it goes along together with sustainable values. For example, like awareness, like open-mindedness, and learning boundaries and responsibility, the groundwork of any work. I would say having responsibility and having awareness. I think the sustainable values is what matters now during this challenging time. And from there, no matter where you are going to put in any industry or any office setting or any workplace, being in offshore, onshore, anywhere, this is where I see the value should be ingrained into any curricula, in any classrooms, any engineering classrooms, any engineering education settings, outside classroom and also inside classroom.
Inside and outside the classroom. Can you think of an example where something like, if you talk about collaboration or communication or critical thinking, and I know your comment there, Dora, that's interesting in the chat. Can you give me an example of where you think you've been taught that or you've learned it during an activity that you've had at university?
Yes, interesting questions. I had this experience of being a committee and facilitators for some undergraduate students in University of Technology Malaysia, where they did I would say social responsibility. I would community service. Yes, this is called community service. Where yes, this is quite a trend now. I think in the US also it's a thing. Where a group of students, they are brought to village, to a rural area, and then they got to learn there for a few weeks, and then they bring back the ideas on how to improvise the society. And it's a really hands-on and very experiential kind of thing. And not only that, they learn how to design things and creating stuff, creating things for the villagers. They also develop communication skills. How do they leverage communication skills across community, and then how do they think of a more empathy way of reaching out to the villages. And that's quite interesting for me, because being with the students, the outcomes are very I would say they had a very good experience. And when they move out from the classroom and when they reach out to the real industry, becoming a real engineer, they really had a sense of connection from what they are working on and what should be the contributions that they do to the community.
So there's a sense of purpose there. I think you're talking
right.
about. Yeah, but and is that kind of program graded at your university or for these students? Did they receive a mark for it?
Yeah, they do. In the first, I think in the initial years, they do it for, just a program where the lecturers will pay for the students and then the students get the benefit. But as time goes by, they embed it into the curriculum as part of a co-curriculum subjects. So it will be done. Yes, in a semester, like they will go out in the weekends, go and reach out to the community and then do their project, and they will present at the end of the semester about what their project is about. And coming back, they have foster families in the village also, and it's a very, I would say, a very interesting thing to be done outside the classroom.
Okay, I wonder, and maybe this one I can ask to Caleb, given the context now that we're in of employers, there's less campus activity. Employers are not coming onto campus in the same way as they were. And there's a significant reduction in the number of work-based learning opportunities. So fewer internships, for example. We know from our own research, we identified that about 70% of the students, and this was in April, who were expecting to start an internship had that opportunity cancelled. And I think that there are two aspects of this. One is that there's a real risk then of the student not getting that internship work-based learning experience, which we know helps to develop some of these skills and enhance some of these skills. And also the pathways that you get, the knowledge about different sectors, different people's routes into different jobs, what might suit you, what not might suit you. It's very difficult to get that if you're simply doing online experiences of some kind. And Caleb, I wonder if there's anything that you in your role and organisation there have done to try and support students in gaining that information, those pathways, or these employability skills during the pandemic, and anything that's worked well that you might carry on with.
Certainly. So basically, at RMIT, there's been a focus in some of the 30 units on having guest lecturers from industry that come in. Mm-hmm. And this has been a wholly collaborative focus. RMIT's got a very strong industry partnership through its aerospace discipline with,
absolutely,
sort of government regulators and private industry. And we seem to have had, almost every week, sort of an influential figurehead that's sort of come in and presented an interactive, very dynamic experience based not only on this is information we'd like to convey, but on how this applies to the real world, and also the call to action to connect with me. And, if this is an area of passion, this is me on LinkedIn, this is what I can do. I know, I have 500 plus in my network. I would like to put you in places. And what I've noticed, our Dean of Aerospace as well, she's been very proactive and also providing quite strong networking opportunities to students that sort of, show some leadership and put their hand up. So it's sort of that integrated focus of both industry and I think, the leadership of the discipline head to sort of, create those same opportunities that, effectively aren't maybe available in the real context, but in an online context can be simulated. And the sort of networks we can make at the moment are still as valuable because the world is going to continue in the background. It'll just take on a different form.
Okay. So there are opportunities to do online, and that is actually potentially adapted to what companies are looking for, the way that people are working in companies right now.
Exactly. And one other side note I might mention, this is through Deakin Launch Network, which is at Deakin University. What we've recently done is taken a focus on building a mentoring program. Mm-hmm. So it's giving university students, in particular, this is maybe related to a different discipline, but it's the same program we're developing, pre-service teachers who have been deprived of the opportunity to do placements at the end of their master's degree. They've been mentoring high school students at underprivileged schools who have been particularly disadvantaged by the present pandemic because of not having the connectivity. So, and there's a similar sort of program we're exploring with the student body at RMIT of potentially having student mentors from engineering to actually create a funnel into students that are in year 11 and year 12 and provide them with a form of mentorship as they sort of enter the industry, which be sort of, that sort of whole picture thing is starting with students in high school and ending with partners in industry. And potentially putting the ownership back in the hands of students to be actively engaged in building and promoting the industry, which is, speaks to some of these soft skills here and, building the ability to then set yourself out in the industry by having a meaningful contribution.
Okay. That's interesting. It would be great if if there are links to these programs somewhere, and you could email me or so put them on Teams or something like that, Caleb. I think that these are it's interesting to to reorient what students might have been doing and going out into companies and actually provide them those opportunities via university partnership of some kind, because I think that the experience is just, it's equally as valid. I know another university that has created several hundred roles for students as digital learning assistants to help some of the faculty transition into using online tools and online materials, and they had at least 5 times the number of applicants that they needed for the program, which demonstrated the appeal of that kind of contribution as well, but also that universities themselves or their society partners can be a very good source of learning experiences. I know that's one of the things that they do at McMaster as well. So I think that given that we've been joined by Dora, and we will wrap up in, I think, the next few minutes, I think that I should offer the opportunity to Dora to ask a question to the students and wonder if there's something that you would like to hear regarding skills or experience of learning skills and employer interaction during COVID or something else.
Well, thank you, Kirsten. Can you hear me okay?
Maybe you could tell us just where you're from as well, Dora, and what you do, so that the team understand.
Sure. So I'm based in St. Louis, Missouri, the middle of the U.S., and I direct the global academic program for Siemens. So really trying to focus on getting our technology in your hands so you get some experience with it, and hopefully want to work for either companies like Siemens or many of our customers that are using that technology today. So I guess I'd just like to hear from you. When you look at industry companies like ours, what more we can do to serve you. We've done similar skills gap studies. I think I referenced one in the comments that we did with ASEE. There's another one I'll put a link to here that we supported, done by a industry analyst in the product lifecycle management, which, interesting enough, it interviewed educators from around the world. Probably about 6-9 months ago, and then went back and interviewed them after COVID to kind of look at how they had to change how they were teaching. And interesting enough, one of those educators who came from industry and is now at University of Michigan spoke about the unique opportunity that the pandemic gave us. I think we heard earlier today, Kirsten, right? Like, let's not waste a good pandemic. What can we learn from it? Yeah. That it is really how we interact today. I mean, my whole team is global around the world. So everything we do is just in this kind of online setting anyway. And so it's sort of forced some of that on students, right? How to do design reviews in a completely virtual setting. So there's good things, lessons learned we can take from that. But I guess I just want to hear from you what we can do more in industry, certainly more that we can give you from experiential learning, whether that's remote or ideally physical in the future. But if you have any asks for us of what you need us to do in working with you and or working with your schools to better prepare you, that's what we're here to do. So I just want to see if there's any direct feedback that you would share.
I might let us maybe take the floor first, given that you are sort of in industry already and you've probably got a more sophisticated perception of the transition in academia.
Right. Okay, this is what I've been, working on myself exactly for the past few months, which is about performance coaching. It is very interesting for me if this thing could be, be done on students also, not only for, adults in the industry, working adults. Kind of a mentorship program done virtually, and it can be linked between any executive in that particular area, selecting a few students who are interested in what they are doing, and then set targets and goals for, throughout the whole year, and then do some performance coaching from there. And I think that is a very experiential, and that will be very, I would say, motivating. And also it builds resilience. There will be breakdowns, of course, throughout the process, and then from the learning and unlearning and relearning, I think it's very, very meaningful kind of virtual thing that we can do that.
Performance coaching. Can we imagine companies getting involved in giving performance coaching and performance evaluations to students?
I
Thanks, Lizelle.
think yes. I think because I think for adults, like being executives, we kind of know this thing, but not many the classroom setting know about this thing. This can be done in a very mini scale of it.
I'd like to actually echo that sentiment and say that I unequivocally agree, because this is exactly what this airline I sort of mentioned earlier that's doing sort of, pipeline programs for future sort of pilots, engineers. They effectively, as part of this 2-year mentorship program, do import elements of performance coaching. There's, feedback review sessions, there's, cognitive behavioral interviews, there's simulated, industry environments in which you're sort of expected to participate. So, you can be viewed from the perspective of how you will apply your skills to the real world. So that is sort of really what's being done. And I think you ask us what we want from you as industry. What we want from you is to tell us what you want. And by telling us what you want, it's a bit of a circle of life. I know it's rhetorical.
Chicken and egg.
Exactly. It's sort of, you know exactly who you're going to bring on board. I think that's, pretty clear. And if you can sort of, make that unequivocally clear to students that basically this is what our next generation of, engineers, employees is going to be, then that's, almost sort of setting us up as, students for a pathway to success, because, you're effectively handing us a roadmap. And that's the biggest gap between industry and academia, is a clear-cut roadmap. Because, like I sort of mentioned earlier, students look at things through very, narrow perspectives at university, and then come out of the degree with, the critical thinking, the, analytical skills, the subject matter expertise. But beyond that, that's the role that industry can serve in all of this, is by stepping in and just guiding us. Mentorship, performance coaching, virtual internships. This leadership, thriving online, that I've had the opportunity to attend, with thanks obviously to industry partnerships and sponsorships with Siemens, among others, has actually caused me to evaluate after this that this has been an experience which should be more widely available to students. We're not doing work integrated learning maybe in a physical sense, but there should be in lieu of these possibly 2 or 3 day sessions that are run by industry within faculty to basically put cohorts together and shake things up, force them to think outside the box and stimulate what they're doing. And this could directly lead into the expectations you have as industry of us as graduates in order to gain that meaningful employment.
So
it's really
the industry involvement in that program, for example, Thriving Online, and indeed Siemens and Dora, thanks to Dora, was one of the sponsors that allowed us to have that group of students. The industry involvement is something that's different to what you might have on campus. If you did those programs at the university, it might not have industry representatives operating as coaches or operating as workshop hosts, that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, we do. I mean, at RMIT, I can say that we do have this contact with industry, which, some of these things that we're touching on is sort of already happening. So it's up to obviously the individual faculties to take ownership and create those sustainable partnerships. But in the broader sense, I can sort of say that in order to gain what industry wants from students, as much as it is up to us to take responsibility for our learning, it's up to industry to take responsibility for shaping those pathways and creating what you want out of it too.
To come and share that. Okay. How's that, Dora?
I like it. I like the idea of the performance coaching, and really, I think a longer term relationship. It's easy for us to maybe get together in a workshop or in a lectureship, but I think the more we can do to engage you over the many years of your education, that will help us be able to better guide you, right, with where our evolving needs are going throughout that time.
Great.
So thank you.
Thank you. And I see Arthur's message. Thank you, Arthur, for joining us. In fact, that is the end of our session today. Really appreciate what you've all contributed. We'll put that together with the notes from the student session, linked to the European Skills Project as well. And that will all be part of the write-up of the event. And there was really a lot of material there, both from the talks and then our discussion and then with yourself. So thank you very much. Thanks both for joining, Caleb, at short notice after a very intense intense 4 days of activity as well. I really appreciate that. And thanks, Dora, for joining us. And I'll see you tomorrow in our sessions. Great.
Thank you, Dora.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.